isn't talking till 9:30.
9:50 local time.
Hold on.
What is this?
Veuillez vous asseoir, s'il vous plaît, nous allons commencer.
What's the name of this facility?
Today's date is 2 October 2009.
Bella, B-E-L-L-A.
Question and answer session for the IOC members. Also POTUS remarks. This is an address going to take place at the Bella Center in Copenhagen, Denmark. Open place of the main camera. This is Metro on camera. Pressure on gear number 1.
Chicago has made your quest to develop the Olympic and Paralympic sports its very own. It represents an historic opportunity to deliver the resources of the United States to the Olympic and Paralympic movement. Chicago is a city with character, a city that stands behind its commitments and offers remarkable possibilities, a city that loves to have fun. In fact, the Evaluation Commission said that Chicago's plan would create an Olympic playground for the Olympic Games. An Olympic playground. Just imagine that.
We ready?
You can see why that setting will create an extraordinary experience. The U.S. Olympic Committee selected Chicago because of its great potential. Over these past 3 years, we have forged a close partnership. And to tell you more about that partnership, here is the USOC's president, Larry Probst.
Thank you, Anita. As the new president of the United States Olympic Committee, I want to make a personal commitment to every member of the Olympic family. I will make a concerted effort to build a partnership between us that advances the cause of Olympic and Paralympic sport on a renewed foundation of friendship and trust. I want to help us all successfully address the challenges that the NOCs face, improving our professional practices and strengthening our focus on sport development. Long term, I want to create a legacy in which the USOC serves the Olympic movement as a vital and trusted partner. Ladies and gentlemen, the United States Olympic Committee fully supports the bid of Chicago 2016. We stand ready to fulfill every commitment, every obligation, and ensure that Chicago delivers a spectacular games for you and the world. And now it is my great pleasure to introduce the man who has led Chicago through a 20-year renaissance. He has revitalized the city and produced major innovations in education, culture, and sport. Mayor Richard M. Daley.
Thank you, Larry. President Rogue, members of the IOC, it is a pleasure to be with you today. I'd like to tell you a story about why my city wants your games. In the 1936 games, Jesse Owens and Ralph Metcalf traveled to Berlin to represent the United States. Think about that. They were competing for a nation that at the time wouldn't give them the basic rights their teammates had. Why did they go? They went because the Olympic Games represent something bigger. And they proved that while everyone is treated equally, their performance in Berlin showed that the Olympic Games are a beacon of hope, peace, and justice. And not just for the United States, but for the world. And their spirit has inspired Chicago to become an Olympic city. During my 20 years as mayor, we have set bold goals and we have achieved them. We have created amazing parks that
Obama.
President Rogue, ladies and gentlemen, Mesdames et Messieurs of the International Olympic Committee, I am honored to be here. I was born and raised on Chicago's South Side, not far from where the games would open and close. Ours was a neighborhood of working families, families with modest homes and strong values. Sports were what brought our community together. They strengthen our ties to one another. Growing up, when I played games with the kids in my neighborhood, we picked sides based not on who you were, but what you could bring to the game. Sports taught me self-confidence, teamwork, and how to compete as an equal. Sports were a gift I shared with my dad, especially the Olympic Games. Some of my best memories are sitting on my dad's lap, cheering on Olga and Nadia, Carl Lewis, and others for their brilliance and perfection. Like so many young people, I was inspired. I found myself dreaming that maybe, just maybe, if I worked hard enough, I too could achieve something great. But I never dreamed that the Olympic flame might one day light up lives in my neighborhood. But today, I can dream. And I am dreaming of an Olympic and Paralympic Games in Chicago that will light up lives in neighborhoods all across America and all across the world, that will expose all our neighborhoods to new sports and new role models, that will show every child that regardless of wealth or gender or race or physical ability, there is a sport and a place for them too. That's why I'm here today. I'm asking you to choose Chicago. I'm asking you to choose America. And I'm not asking just as the First Lady of the United States, who is eager to welcome the world to our shores, and not just as a Chicagoan, who is proud and excited to show the world what my city can do, not just as a mother raising two beautiful young women to embrace athleticism and pursue their full potential. I'm also asking as a daughter. See, my dad would have been so proud to witness these games in Chicago. And I know they would have meant something much more to him too. You see, in my dad's early 30s, he was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. And as he got sicker, it became harder for him to walk, let alone play his favorite sports. But my dad was determined that sports continue to be a vital lifeline, not just to the rest of the world, but to me and my brother. And even as we watched my dad struggle to hold himself up on crutches, he never stopped playing with us. And he refused to let us take our abilities for granted. He believed that his little girl should be taught no less than his son. So he taught me how to throw a ball and a mean right hook better than any boy in my neighborhood. But more importantly, my dad taught us the fundamental rules of the game, rules that continue to guide our lives today. To engage with honor, with dignity, and fair play. My dad was my hero. And when I think of what these games can mean to people all over the world, I think about people like my dad, people who face seemingly insurmountable challenges, but never let go. They work a little harder, but they never give up. Now, my dad didn't live to see the day that the Paralympic Games would become the force that they are today. But if he had lived to see this day, if he could have seen the Paralympic Games share a global stage with the Olympic Games, if he could have witnessed athletes who compete and excel and prove that nothing is more powerful than the human spirit, I know it would have restored in him the same sense of unbridled possibility that he instilled in me. Chicago's vision for the Olympic and Paralympic movement is about so much more than what we can offer the Games. It's about what the Games can offer all of us. It's about inspiring this generation and building a lasting legacy for the next. It's about our responsibility as Americans, not just to put on great games, but to use these games as a vehicle to bring us together, to usher in a new era of international engagement, and to give us hope, and to change lives all over the world. And I brought somebody with me today who knows a little something about change. My husband, the President of the United States, Barack Obama.
President Rogue, ladies and gentlemen of the International Olympic Committee. I come here today as a passionate supporter of the Olympic and Paralympic Games, as a strong believer in the movement they represent, and as a proud Chicagoan. But above all, I come as a faithful representative of the American people, and we look forward to welcoming the world to the shores of Lake Michigan and the heartland of our nation in 2016. To host athletes and visitors from every corner of the globe is a high honor and a great responsibility. And America is ready and eager to assume that sacred trust. And we're a nation that has always opened its arms to the citizens of the world, including my own father from the African continent. People who have sought something better, who have dreamed of something bigger. I know you face a difficult choice among several great cities and nations with impressive bids of their own. So I've come here today to urge you to choose Chicago for the same reason I chose Chicago nearly 25 years ago. The reason I fell in love with the city I still call home. And it's not just because it's where I met the woman you just heard from. Although after getting to know her this week, I know you'll all agree that she's a pretty big selling point for the city. You see, growing up, my family moved around a lot. I was born in Hawaii. I lived in Indonesia for a time. I never really had roots in any one place or culture or ethnic group. And then I came to Chicago. And on those Chicago streets, I worked alongside men and women who were black and white, Latino and Asian, people of every class and nationality and religion. I came to discover that Chicago is that most American of American cities, but one where citizens from more than 130 nations inhabit a rich tapestry of distinctive neighborhoods. Each one of those neighborhoods, from Greektown to the Ukrainian Village, from Devon to Pilsen to Washington Park, has its own unique character, its own unique history, its songs, its language. But each is also part of our city, one city, a city where I finally found a home. Chicago is a place where we strive to celebrate what makes us different, just as we celebrate what we have in common. It's a place where our unity is on colorful display at so many festivals and parades, and especially sporting events, where perfect strangers become fast friends just because they're wearing the same jersey. It's a city that works. From its first World's Fair more than a century ago to the World Cup we hosted in the 90s. We know how to put on big events. And scores of visitors and spectators will tell you that we do it well. Chicago is a city where the practical and the inspirational exist in harmony, where visionaries who make no small plans rebuilt after a great fire and taught the world to reach new heights. It's a bustling metropolis with the warmth of a small town, where the world already comes together every day to live and work and reach for a dream that no matter who we are, where we come from, No matter what we look like or what hand life has dealt us, with hard work and discipline and dedication, we can make it if we try. That's not just the American dream, that is the Olympic spirit. It's the essence of the Olympic spirit. And that's why we see so much of ourselves in these games. That's why we want them in Chicago. That's why we want them in America. You know, we stand at a moment in history when the fate of each nation is inextricably linked to the fate of all nations. A time of common challenges that require common effort. And I ran for president because I believe deeply that at this defining moment, the United States of America has a responsibility to help in that effort, to forge new partnerships with the nations and the peoples of the world. And no one expects the games to solve all our collective challenges. But what we do believe, what each and every one of you believe, and what all of the Chicago delegation believes, is that in a world where we've all too often witnessed the darker aspects of our humanity, peaceful competition between nations represents what's best about our humanity. It brings us together, if only for a few weeks, face to face. It helps us understand one another just a little bit better. It reminds us that no matter how or where we differ, we all seek our own measure of happiness and fulfillment and pride in what we do. That's a very powerful starting point for progress. You know, nearly 1 year ago, on a clear November night, people from every corner of the world gathered in the city of Chicago or in front of their televisions to watch the results of a U.S. presidential election. Their interest wasn't about me as an individual. Rather, it was rooted in the belief that America's experiment in democracy still speaks to a set of universal aspirations and ideals. Their interest sprung from the hope that in this ever-shrinking world, our diversity could be a source of strength, a cause for celebration, and that with sustained work and determination, we could learn to live and prosper together during the fleeting moment we share on this earth. Now, that work is far from over, but it has begun in earnest. And while we do not know what the next few years will bring, there is nothing I would like more than to step just a few blocks from my family's home with Michelle and our 2 girls and welcome the world back into our neighborhood. At the beginning of this new century, the nation that has been shaped by people from around the world wants a chance to inspire it once more, to ignite the spirit of possibility at the heart of the Olympic and Paralympic movement in a new generation, to offer a stage worthy of the extraordinary talent and dynamism offered by nations joined together, to host games that unite us in noble competition and shared celebration of our limitless potential as a people. And so, I urge you to choose Chicago. I urge you to choose America. And if you do, if we walk this path together, then I promise you this: the city of Chicago and the United States of America will make the world proud. Thank you so much.
Mr. President, we are ready for questions.
Thank you, Chicago, for an excellent presentation. I would now like to open the discussion and call for any questions from the International Olympic Committee members, international federations, and national Olympic committees. The Chicago delegation will then answer all questions together. Are there questions from IOC members? Are there questions from international federations? Are there questions from national Olympic committees? I have a question by Mr. Sergei Bubka.
Thank you, Mr. President. First of all, I would like to congratulate Chicago team for their presentation. I would like to ask the question regarding the additional Olympic village, which promised to provide for cycling competition. Would it be possible to provide the equal and same condition like in the main Olympic village? It's important for us to deliver same standard and treat athletes equally. Would it be possible for athletes to travel and to visit each other because they stay quite far from each other? And the second part of the question is regarding the shooting venue. As it's located 55K, would you consider to provide day accommodation like you do for equestrian? Because the shooting is very specific sport, should be very peaceful, very quiet, concentrate. And I just want to know if you consider day accommodation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bubka. I have a question by Prince Albert of Monaco.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. President Obama, Mrs. Obama, dear members of the Chicago 2016 bid team, thank you for your presentation. Allow me just a couple of questions. One, my colleague Sergei Bubka has almost touched upon, and that is very often we see differences between the bid document and once the games near their opening, there are changes in from the original bid document. I know it's very difficult to give assurances that things won't be very different from the bid document to the actual games time as far as sports facilities and venues are concerned, but are there any of those facilities that you foresee will be subject to change by games time, should you have the games? And then you did touch a lot upon legacy in your presentation. I just wanted to see if maybe if you could identify what would be your most important legacy, and if you had one item of that legacy, material or immaterial, that you would like everybody to remember Chicago by, should you have the games. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prince Albert. There not being further questions, Chicago, you have the floor.
I was so anxious to answer Mr. Bubka's question. Thank you very much for your question, Mr. Bubka. And it relates to satellite villages at cycling. Can we have equal conditions at this venue? And can the athletes travel to other sports? And then we'll go to the shooting question. Doug Arnott, please, on the cycling.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bubka, for the question. Yes, we're very pleased with the cycling village arrangements that we have made with the University of Wisconsin. This will be a brand new housing development that is planned for married students at the university. This is condominium type living, which is very, very similar to that which we have in Chicago. It also, coincidentally, is on a lake and will have all of the amenities at that village that we have available in the village in Chicago. Furthermore, it's also about 50 meters from the start of the course, so very, very convenient for training and very convenient at competition time. It will be possible and convenient for the cyclists to be able to travel to the village in Chicago. And I'd ask my colleague, Lori Healy, to speak a little bit to what will be available for them there.
Thank you, Doug. Just the opportunity to add to that question. The village will be full amenities, and speaking also to the second question asked by Prince Albert, we're very pleased to say that the City of Chicago has already purchased the land for the village and has actually begun the process of environmental remediation and demolition. There are a number of amenities. There is a private beach at the village, as well as all the amenities that have been developed in close consultation with all the athletes that we have been most fortunate to work with during this process.
And the second part of the question from Sergei Bubka, Mr. Bubka asked, shooting venue, will it have the same accommodations? And Doug, would you pick that up, please?
Yes, thank you very much again, Mr. Bubka, for the question. Yes, we have already considered, planned for, and budgeted for a day village at shooting, understanding that it's 55 minutes away, and very much to your point, we understand that many of the athletes will want to go and not only be there for their day of competition, but also for their days of training and practice. So we have planned for a day village at the shooting venue.
The next question is from Prince Albert, and I thank you for the question, Prince Albert. And it has, pardon me, it has to do with assurances that the venues will stay the same as in the documents. And we've worked very hard on these venues and venue plans, and we are committed to delivering those venues. We've committed to the people of Chicago. We've committed to the IOC. But Doug Arnott, if you'd like to pick up on that.
Sure. Thank you very much again for the question. Yeah, we have, as Mr. Ryan mentions, we've gone to extraordinary detail in our budgets and in our construction plans to be able to assure you that we understand the scope, both from the International Olympic Committee technical documents and the IFs, and as well from the people who have worked with us who represent well over 150 years of combined Olympic Games experience. Working with the federations has been extremely important for us to understand the needs there, but also we have in every case tried to take the extra measure. We have existing contracts for every one of the facilities. We have existing agreements and improvements from the city for each one of the parks where we will build the facilities. So the understanding of scope, the understanding of requirements, and also making sure that we have always gone the extra steps, the extra mile, to ensure that the experience that we're presenting to you today will be the experience that will be enjoyed by the athletes, all of you, and all of our special guests to the Olympic Games in Chicago in 2016.
Mr. Bubka, we assure the IOC that we will deliver as planned. The next part of the question from Prince Albert is, what's the most important legacy of the Chicago Games? Bob, support it, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Royal Highness. This is just an excellent question. And as someone who was on the evaluation commission, leading the evaluation commission for the United States Olympic Committee starting 3 years ago, one thing, the first time I went to Chicago, I just noticed these great parks in this park system. And one thing we would like to do as one part of the legacy is put the fun back into the games. Sometimes games are technically excellent, but we would like to have live sites and really make it a citywide celebration throughout the entire city. And having this park system right along the lake in the center of the city, all already under the control of the city, is the perfect venue for that. Also, as I mentioned, we will have legacy venues. And these aren't just legacy venues to build white elephants or to have big stadiums or monuments. These are real stadiums that will have real needs for the citizens of Chicago, but also be able to be used by the citizens of the world and the athletes of the world to train, which brings us to our next legacy. When I talked about opening up the universities and the classrooms and the campuses, we've already talked with the head of the university system in the United States, which is a pretty solid system as far as using and creating a way to open up campuses for your athletes and for your teams, and also your officials and administrators for the ones that need it. Not because it helps necessarily your athletes, but it also helps the United States to become more worldly and learn from your athletes and administrators. And finally, you did see that Chicago, one other legacy would be the youth sport programs. It's not just bricks and mortar, but it would be real programs that will affect the youth, the young people, and they haven't just talked about it. The city of Chicago already has the funding in place for these programs. Thank you.
Prince Albert, I'd just like to add that I apologize for saying Mr. Bupka's question. It was yours on the committee.
Have a terrifically strong partnership with the federal government in Washington. We've worked very closely with the U.S. State Department. Secretary Clinton has also been a very good partner and has worked to assure everyone the full cooperation of the federal government. Additionally, in June, the White House announced the formation of the Office of Olympic, Paralympic, and Youth Sport that will act as the coordinating agency if we are so privileged to be selected for the right to host the Games, to put all the forces of the federal government behind that.
President Obama would like to add to that, please.
Well, let me just emphasize what Lori said in response to Mr. Ali's question. One of the legacies I want to see coming out of the Chicago 2016 hosting of the Games is a reminder that America at its best is open to the world. And as has already been indicated, we are putting the full force of the White House and the State Department to make sure that not only is this a successful Games, but that visitors from all around the world feel welcome and will come away with a sense of the incredible diversity of the American people. And I'm very impressed with part of the presentation that we made, matching up host families for the athletes who are going to be there, because, as I said, Chicago, we've got everybody. This could be a meeting in Chicago because we look like the world. And I think that over the last several years, sometimes that fundamental truth about the United States has been lost. One of the legacies, I think, of this Olympic Games in Chicago would be a restoration of that understanding of what the United States is all about, and the United States' recognition of how we are linked to the world.
Thank you, Mr. President. We would not add anything to that.
I would like to thank Chicago for taking part in this important competition. You can be very proud of what you have achieved in your city and your country through